One, two, three, four.
All right, and welcome back to It's Not a Sport, Season 4. We have a very special guest for this week because it is a special week. It is E3 week, and joining me this week is Todd Lewis, the cigar chemist himself. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So, after coming out of the pandemic, we've had both a good year for gaming business-wise and a rough year for new games. And this week is, of course, E3 weekend. It is the most hyped up weekend for the video game community. We went in 2018 to the last good E3, I would argue. That was a fun experience for both of us. And now we have new formatting, it's all online, and we're going to start with Xbox. So overall, let's get your thoughts on Xbox, Todd. What did you think of Microsoft and Bethesda?
I think I've always been a PlayStation guy. Back an old man, original gamer. This is going back to the very first PlayStation, and that had to be 96, 97, somewhere there between 95 and 97. So I've always been a Sony guy, and then Xbox was kind of late to the party, but they caught up, and so even like from the the South Park episodes where they're fighting for what they should get, either the Xbox or the PlayStation. I mean, that battle has always continued. That being said, checking out the lineup for this year's virtual E3, nothing like the real thing in 2018 in LA. That was a blast. I thought that Xbox had a great lineup. I thought that they're a worthy adversary of PlayStation, and they held their own in terms of developing the new games that they had coming out. I think that it was about 40 minutes that we watched. It was a little longer, maybe.
Yeah, it's about an hour.
Of all the new products they have coming out, and I was impressed. If I were an Xbox person, I would probably be even more impressed. But not being an Xbox person, I thought they had a incredible presentation, really good lineup of games, and it was probably a game for each and every gamer, depending on your fancy, what you like.
So one of Xbox's previous criticisms from the community is that they don't have enough exclusives. While Sony has God of War, they've gotten Spider-Man, they've gotten Uncharted, just huge exclusives like that right off the bat. And over these last couple years, Xbox has been lacking. And they came into the show with a lot of different exclusives. So what do you think about that? Do you think Xbox has fought to add more exclusives to their lineup, even though they're not big blockbuster exclusives like God of War? And the ones that we saw, which were, for example, to refresh your memory, like Halo, that first game that they announced, Starfield, and a game at the end that you missed. But what do you think about that overall?
The product are always designed to make people buy the particular console, and I think Xbox has always had Halo, right?
Yes.
So Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So they've advanced that category for them. The first one that we saw, the Starfield one, looked really interesting, and they piqued my interest. Then it won't be out until you know end of next year. So by that time, I would have long since forgot about it. But I mean, yeah, you want to do games that are exclusive to your platform to entice people to buy the platform. I get that. Um, Sony's gone a different route where they're aligning themselves with um, with the feature film characters, and they actually have a feature film company that they own. They own Columbia Pictures,
Right.
so they have access to you know that kind of those kinds of games or those kinds of or developing games in that form. But Xbox, is doing the best they can do with their exclusives. I think most people that that play Xbox do play their exclusive games along with the multi-platform games as well. And like I said, that Starfield one looked really interesting. I just have to remember to look out for it when it's around.
One of my criticisms from the show overall for this year wasn't that they lacked exclusives really. I think they've stepped up on that front. It was the lack of gameplay that came out of the show. Because if we look back on it, it was very rarely did they show us any actual like 5-minute footage of the game being played, especially for the Starfield game, which was one of the highlights of their show. Any takes on that and lack of gameplay?
No, I think that's E3. When I remember back in 2018, the PlayStation had what was the game where the guy had the little baby, he was running around with the little baby.
Death Stranding.
Yeah, and even when they first showed that game or displayed that game, they did the same kind of thing. 3-4 minute clips, interrupted. Talk about it some more. So that's probably more of a developmental process. As they're still trying to figure out game flow. So that didn't bother me so much. I think that's typical E3.
Okay. Last real question on Xbox is their business move. For the last couple of years, they have bought up a lot of different studios. The key one being Bethesda, which are the makers of Fallout and Skyrim, which were not in the show at all. They announced Skyrim 6 a couple years ago, and that was lacking from the show. And then they got some other big ones like Obsidian Games, and they've been really buying up a lot of these studios. And then they've been switching their game plan from making games just for the Xbox and trying to sell the console to selling Game Pass. And if you don't know what Game Pass is essentially Netflix for video games. It's $15 a month, and it's huge. Like, it's really big. What do you think of their business plan so far?
That's a business plan that everybody is using. Subscription services now are a way for any company or anybody to guarantee a certain amount of revenue every month, and from that pool, they know that it's different than like if you release a game and you're expecting 2 million people to buy it and only 1 million people buy it. That's a different. So that kind of that marketing strategy is kind of faded. Where it's probably better that we not worry so much about how many people play the game, and better off giving people more options of games to play, and we're just gonna we're gonna tax them every month for $15. That's no different. Netflix didn't necessarily pioneer that. They're just the best example of what a subscription service is like. So it's a move that everyone makes, and I understand the move because it guarantees the company, they can project their monthly incomes a lot easier if they know they have, a million people paying them $15 a month. They know every month they're making $15 million. Now, of course, that number is going to fluctuate. Some people will, discontinue, and some people will, add it too. But just as a round number, no factual number. But to know that you have, $15 million coming in every month, you can operate your company better that way, and budget better. So everyone's going to that, and it makes sense. So I don't blame them for doing that.
Do you think more gamers are going to go the subscription model and pay the $15 a month as we start to see games increase in price from $60 to $70?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You know, for the same reason, Blockbuster went out of business and people would complain about, rewind fees or late fees, and they were just, taxing every fee they could to make the business model work, till eventually it didn't work anymore. There are no more Blockbusters. I think you have to do that. So it gets, there's always going to be people that want to collect the games, that want to have a library of games. That would be no different than people that collect, LPs or CDs for that matter, which have all gone the way of, another subscription service in Spotify or Apple. But I just think, once again, it's how you can maintain cash flow, and for those $70 games, if you're a EA Sports fan and you play Madden, it would be easier just to pay the $15 every month. When the new Madden comes out, it's still going to take you 6-7 months to play it, depending on how at what level or what intensity you play the game. And then by the time you're done playing it, the new one's out. No one's going to drop another $70. Now, at $15 a month, you've already you've paid for it after 4 months. But also, what you're getting included in that $15 is other games to play. So, like I said, it's a model that's here to stay, and they will always probably offer games for hard CDs for people that want to buy them. But I see that as a dying breed.
All right.
Unless you're on Reddit, you're trying to bump up the price of GameStop.
All right. So let's move on to Nintendo now. Nintendo had a short little show, their Direct. They do these maybe 3 times a year. One around Christmas, one in earlier in the year, and right now. Overall, what were your thoughts on Nintendo and what they had to show for this year?
Nintendo's always been, how can I describe it? They're like the Boost Mobile of gamers. They're the third one, and they have to me, they have a niche. I mean, the people that are playing Nintendo Switch or Wii, or that played the GameCube, or before that it was Sega Genesis, and that's going back to the 90s. They have a niche audience. You can play other platforms, on their game. I'm sure you could play, to use the example again, you could play Madden on Nintendo Switch, but people that buy Nintendo Switch don't buy it to play Madden.
Right.
Nintendo's presentation to me, very similar to from 2018. You know,
Right.
it, they have their fans. People are hyped about, the games. Their games to me are always intended to be group games. You know what I mean? Like, you're playing,
Hmm.
maybe that's not the right word. Games that you're playing, with your friends. The Switch makes you mobile, which is an advantage that Xbox nor PlayStation don't have. I know PlayStation tried to do the mobile gaming kind of handheld for a minute. I don't know if they still do.
Right. Yeah. They don't. Yeah. They don't make PSPs anymore.
Um, but I mean, they know their audience. Yeah, too bad. They know their audience, and they know what their audience wants. And it can, on the face of it, it can seem like they're just doing the same thing. I just think they're a niche market company, and people that like the games that Nintendo has, they're going to just keep developing new ways and new worlds for Mario to jump up and down in, and that's fine.
Yeah. So the Switch is 5 years old now. Came out in 2017. And it has become the fastest selling console I think they've ever had. Sold a lot of units during quarantine, and it continues to grow. Do you think with this direction Nintendo has taken with the Switch is the right direction for them to compete against the bigger dogs, which are Sony and of course Microsoft?
They're competing. I mean, they're competing with them in the sense that they're both, all three of them are making gaming consoles. But I really don't know that, they're competing with them. I would not be surprised, based on the last, 15 months on planet Earth. It's not surprising that the Switch has done so well. Um, it's like I said, it's portable. Um, Even at a point where people were, couldn't take being inside anymore and had to get outside, especially last summer. And you could be, 10 feet, 6 feet, 20 feet away from, you know, your friend and still play the game together, which is something you couldn't do if you were indoors with Xbox and PlayStation. So I just think they know their market, man. They do it. They do it really, really well. And the stuck at home aspect of the last 15 months has probably helped their business. They weren't. I don't think Nintendo does a whole lot of first-person shooter games. They're more lighthearted games, fun, challenging games, puzzle-type games. And during, the last 15 months of COVID, that's probably what people wanted rather than to play, 4 hours of, you know, first-person shooter games. So they lucked up. They have to keep the momentum going. I thought that their presentation kind of showed that, that was the direction they were going to continue in, and it served them well.
All right. Yeah, I think Nintendo's been doing really well, and they've been, they give their player base what they want. So the last final question I have before we wrap it up is we won't see EA until July. We won't see PlayStation. PlayStation hasn't even announced what they're going to do or what they want to do or a date for their state of play yet. So, do you have any predictions for the industry over the course of 2021 into 2022 going forward?
Yes. This, the gaming industry in the last, 25 years, and, I go back to, Palm, literally. It was an amazing day when you could play Pong on a black and white TV. Do the math to figure out the years. And it's going to grow. Now, I will say that the industry as a whole needs a blockbuster game. It needs, there was a lot of and this is just, the times. Like if you play something long enough, it's going to seem like something you played before. And so it may take every, the cycle might be every 5 years, every 7 years, every 10 years, where something really true and innovative comes down the pike, and it'll either trigger a rise in sales for whichever console manufacturer gets that game, and that's always going to be the challenge. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing what they know people like, and this might be the danger of the subscription service, is that they don't really have to innovate that much. If they know they have your $15 every month, then the need to innovate may or may not be there or as strong. So that would be the only, looking forward. I'd like to see now we're getting into 30 to 40 plus years of gaming. There needs to be the next level. I don't know if that's VR or whatever's in the whatever's in the gun about to be shot, but I mean, my prediction would be you're going to have to see a real blockbuster game, something that's amazingly innovative to continue, the growth of gaming, and it'll come. Don't know what it is.
All right. So we need our next Fortnite.
Yeah, but even Fortnite was a flash in the pan. I don't know how popular it is now. I mean, it had a good, 2.5, 3 year run. But I'm talking about something that's innovative and, sustainable at the same time.
All right. Well, thank you, Todd, for coming on to the show. Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
If you want to follow me, you can always find me on Instagram at cigarchemist.
All right. Well, thank you. And that's going to conclude this week's Talk If It's Not a Sport. And right now, we're going to move into, like always, into the news. All right. And I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of It's Not a Sport, the E3 edition. We had a great conversation with Todd. Make sure to check him out at cigarchemist on Instagram, where you can find all your latest news for cigars and keep up to date with that. For us, however, check out our social medias, links in the description below. All that will be found in the description below, where you can check out all of our past shows on our YouTube channel, and make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps us out so we can bring you more banger shows like this one. With further ado, let's get into the news. And yes, we have a lot of news this week. As we did talk about E3, I'm going to go over some of the brief announcements that happened over the course of the weekend. And since we skipped last week, we have some news piled up as well. So the first big banger of news is that NVIDIA will no longer plans to support Windows 7 and 8 and 8.1. This is big. It means that they can focus on making better graphics for Windows 10. And I believe there was a rumor not too while ago that we were going to have Windows 11 out in the not foreseeable future, or in the foreseeable future, which would be huge. Windows 7 was a fantastic operating system, but I do believe at this point it is outdated, and we should go on to 10. EA got hacked, which is huge. The EA didn't have a huge lot of announcements this week. The only big one was Battlefield 2042, I believe, which is the next Battlefield game installment, and we will probably see stuff from them. Hopefully a new Star Wars game like Jedi Fallen Order comes out from them, because they have their show in July, so we have to wait and see. But EA gaming giant got hacked, and they stole some source code for the new Battlefield and for FIFA. It's not a huge deal. It just knows that source code is, you don't want to get out as a company, because again, that's basically the core of your product. Roblox got hit with a 200 million plus lawsuit by music publishers. This is pretty big. Roblox is the poor man's Minecraft, I would say. A lot of kids love Roblox. A lot of kids play Roblox, because I think growing up in my experience, when I went to Chicago Quest, which was a very hood school at the time, there's two groups of kids. There's the kids who played Roblox, and there are the kids who played Minecraft. And most of the kids who played Minecraft kind of had more money to their name and stuff like that, and they weren't really in too bad of a financial spot compared to other kids. And Roblox is, again, a huge game. Kids love this game. This is the kids game next to Fortnite, and they just went public with their stock, and to see them get hit with this much money, and how big Roblox community is on YouTube, it's really huge. GameStop is preparing for a Legend Zelda event. It's a rumor, and it's not too big of a rumor. I don't know. It is 35th Zelda anniversary. We got Zelda news from the Direct today, and it's not surprising that they would try and do something to hype up Zelda. Valve had an announcement at E3 this year, which if you missed it, it's fine if you missed it. It wasn't that big of a deal. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but this is the first announcement that they've had since 2021. And it's actually funny, and we can go into this in a bit in the future when we get to our announcements. Atlas confirms that its PSP games still available in the PS3 and PS Vita store. These is like Persona 4, Persona 3 Golden, which is already ported to the PC. And Shinju Atlas, it's escaping my mind. The precursor to Persona are also the type of those games, and they did have an announcement at the Direct this year. Facebook login is no longer allowed on Twitch. They got rid of it. This is probably a retaliation, I think, because Facebook just announced that 100% of subscription profits go to the content creator, which is really big. Facebook is trying, and I would definitely give it a feel to switch over to Facebook. As a streamer, it's probably a much more profitable and livable platform to switch on to Facebook right now than to stream on Twitch. The problem is Facebook just has a bad rep. That's really it. So let's get into some E3 announcements. Pardon my notes. I know they're messy. They were quick notes taken on the fly while I was watching the stream. We're going to start with the Summer's Game Fest, it started out nothing big there, nothing noteworthy, except probably the most anticipated game coming out of this year's E3, the Elden Ring. The next From Software game. We finally got something from it. We finally got a release date, which will be in February of next year, I believe, or January. First couple months of next year. Same kind of time frame as Sekiro. And it is huge. This game is, I'm hyped for it. I fell in love with From Software games, especially with Sekiro. Fell in love with Dark Souls. They are just a different type of game. They're just really high quality, really well made. And this is an outlier because, one, It is co-written with the dude who wrote Game of Thrones. So instead of finishing Game of Thrones or Book of Fire Ice or whatever it's called, like all those people want, he went and did a video game. And then 2, it seems to be their first open world sandbox type of game. As we saw, if you watch the trailer, if you haven't already, there's horses in this game, and there's like seems to be more exploration to it. Bigger, like Sekiro had a bit of exploration, but it was still linear. And now this game seems to be up there as in linear. Now, will they go more of a Dark Souls route and bring back builds, bring back stats? Maybe. It seems to look more on the Dark Souls side of things than it was, of course, of Sekiro's, and the combat looks more like Dark Souls than it does Sekiro, but who knows? I suspect that they learned a lot coming from Sekiro being the massive success that it was. With that out of the way, let's get into some smaller stuff. Ubisoft, they had a show. They did Rainbow Six Extraction. It comes out September 16th. It's like a zombie game. It's cross-play. It's for Rainbow Six fans who want like a co-op experience. There you go. They announced Rocksmith Plus. It's a sub-service. They announced some sports games. It was like a DMX hardcore sports game. Some Rainbow Six Siege stuff. June 30th, crossplay comes out. Early 2020 for 2022 for consoles and Thunderbird Operator. Updates to For Honor, Brawlhalla, Assassin's Creed, and Watch Dogs Legions. Just Dance 2022. It's an e-girl game. Assassin's Creed Valhalla will get new updates, and then Ubisoft TV and film, which I didn't even know they had. Far Cry 6 news, a season pass for Far Cry 6 to do with their villains or something like that, and then Mario and Rabbids 2. This game was actually leaked a day before it was announced. It's a Switch exclusive, of course, and that comes out next year as well. And then the last one they finish out is like an Avatar game, the movie Avatar, James Cameron game. Gearbox had a little announcement. They do a Tiny Tina Wonderland, which is a standalone Borderlands game, I think. Probably closer to the Borderlands pre-sequel, and inspired by the Borderlands 2 DLC Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Then we have Tribes of Midgard, which is a 10-player co-op game, which I wrote here, of course. Where the fuck am I going to get 9 friends? From some sort of Norse mythology tower defense sort of game. People are saying Valheim clone in the chat. Homeworld 3, Godfall, nothing big from Gearbox again. Then we got into the banger, which again we talked about a bit of the overall show, but from Microsoft plus Bethesda, now that they own Bethesda, we had Starfield, which seems to be maybe their space Elder Scrolls or Fallout game. That comes out 11/11/22. Stalker 2 looked really cool, comes out April of next year. Back for Blood, which is just Left 4 Dead 3, comes out next year as well. They showed that off. The Fall comes out October in the fall. We have Contraband. Sea of Thieves gets a Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. They showed off the Yakuza games on Game Pass, which we mentioned. They showed off a little bit of Battlefront or Battlefield 2042, 12 minutes, some indie games, Psychonauts, Fallout 76, new expansion, has to do with Brotherhood of Steel, that comes out July 7th, and then something else called The Pit comes out the 2022. ESO, which is on my list to check out. They got some stuff like that. Hopefully they'll compress this game, because this game was like 50, 80, 20, 120 gigs. Some party anime. Hades 2 goes to Xbox. We got Somerville, another 2020 game. They showed off Halo, and the interesting thing about Halo 2 is that the multiplayer is going to be free to play, which is very interesting. And then we got it's going to be cross-platform, PC of course, and from the trailer there's a new AI. No more Cortana. Cortana went to Windows 10. She's in your computer right now, but there's a new AI for Master Chief. So it's going to be interesting. Halo's probably one of my more anticipated games of this year, since this game this year seems to be very on the low end. We got Diablo 2 announced date, which will be the 9th of this year, September 23rd. We have a Plague Tale Requiem comes out next year, some Fallout 6 stuff again, Slime Ratchet 2. They made a second one. That didn't make sense to me. So Shredders, which is a snowboarding game, comes out October of this year. Atomic Heart, Grounded, which Among Us come to Xbox. Elysium, RPG. The Ascent comes out the 7th of this year. Age of Empire 6 or 4, the next Age of Empire comes out in October. The Outer Worlds 2 had a funny trailer, but it's in the development. That's what I was saying, it's just in the development. Microsoft Flight Simulator, Forza Horizon 5, there's some cool stuff with cars, and then there comes an update for that November 9th. Sorry, I'm going rapid fire here. And then finally, last but not least, from the people who made Dishonored, Redfall, which seems to be another zombie, but it seems to be vampire Left 4 Dead, comes out summer of next year. Overall, my thoughts of it, great show from Xbox. Didn't have enough gameplay. We need more gameplay. We need to see what the fuck Starfield's gonna look like. We need to see what the fuck Redfall is gonna look like. What is Halo looking like after, the rumors coming out that it's in crunch, etc. So stuff like that. PC Gamer had a show, which of course the Steam announcement was really just that you can play free game demos right now on Steam, it was honestly nothing of an announcement, something to skip over. But the interesting thing is that now Steam is have to actually do this, because obviously I think now they may be feeling the pressure of the Epic Game Store, and that's very interesting. Square Enix, we had a Guardians of the Galaxy game, comes out October 26th of next year. Gameplay was really good. They showed gameplay, kind of funny. It really feels Guardians of the Galaxy, but it does not look good. It does not look on the level of Insomniac's Spider-Man. Remasters of FF1 through 6 still pixelated for Steam and mobile. Legends of Mana comes out June 24th. The Avengers, I just wrote dead game here because it is a dead game if you haven't checked out an episode or figured out how that launch went. But if you're the 1 and 2 people that are still playing the Avengers video game, congratulations on your update and the Black Panther update. And then we also got some mobile games: Babylon Fall, Life is Strange Killing Remastered, Life is Strange True Colors, which is the next Life is Strange game, is coming out soon. No Final Fantasy VI announcements, or my bad, and that's not supposed to be 6, that's supposed to be 16. No Final Fantasy 16 news or Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker expansion news, but to be fair, they already did a huge Endwalker event the month before, so who knows. They also may be saving that stuff for the Sony show, because they like to have their biggest games on the biggest eyeballs, which is generally Sony and Microsoft. Nintendo, new Smash character. Super Mario Party Super, which is like all the old Super Mario Party games, comes out in October. Metroid Dread comes out the 10th, 8th, and the 8th of next year. Metroid 4, they mentioned it, but didn't show anything, which is cautious, because generally Nintendo doesn't like to talk about things until they're ready, as we see with Metroid Dread. And then Metroid 4 has been MIA for forever now, so it maybe just be dead. Shinji Megami Tensei 5. I'm gonna always butcher that. I apologize. It comes out November 12th. This is the precursor game to Persona. This is what Atlus has been working on instead of Persona 6, like they should be. But I'll let you do your work. It's fair. And Breath of the Wild 2 got a huge, really nice trailer. Every time I see this game, it hypes me up, because I loved Breath of the Wild, and that comes out. They said they're aiming for a release date next year, and hopefully that's true. But it's no surprise that COVID delayed a lot of these things. With that out of the way, let's get into esports real fast, starting with the Overwatch League. We have Dallas Fusion in first, followed by San Francisco, then Houston, then Los Angeles Gladiators, then Washington, then Atlanta, then Florida, then Toronto, then Boston, then Paris, then Vancouver, and London are tied for 11th and last place. That is the West Coast side. And the East Coast side, we have Shanghai Dragons, Seoul Dynasty, Philadelphia Fusion, Hangzhou Spark, Chengdu Hunters, New York, Guangzhou Chargers, and Los Angeles Valiants. I believe they shouldn't be close to playoffs. But that is the current standings for the Overwatch team in LCS, League of Legends. And quick reminder, Valorant I think is currently on break, so no Valorant news, but they just had their master tournament and then they're on break for a little bit, I think, but they should be starting up, I would believe, soon. But in moving on to League of Legends, LCS started up last week, and in week 1 we had TL versus TSM. TSM won. Then we had EG versus Dig won. Golden Guardians versus C9. Golden Guardians won. 100 Thieves versus Immortals won. FlyQuest versus CLG. FlyQuest won. And then we had TSM versus EG. TSM won. Dig versus Fly. Dig won. C9 versus 100 Thieves won. CLG versus Liquid. Team Liquid won. Immortals versus Golden Guardians. Immortals won. Then we had Dig versus 100 Thieves. 100 won. EG versus Fly. Fly won. C9 versus TL. C9 won. TSM versus Golden Guardians. TSM won. CLG versus Immortals. Immortals won. And then in week 2, which is this week, we had TSM versus 100. 100 won. TL versus Dig. TL won. EG versus Immortals. EG won. Golden Guardians versus CLG. CLG won. Fly versus C9. C9 won. 100 Thieves versus Golden Guardians. Golden Guardians won. Fly versus TSM. Fly won. TL versus EG. EG won. C9 versus CLG. C9 won. Immortals versus Dig. Dig won. GG versus Fly. GG won. Immortals versus TL. TL won. CLG versus TSM. TSM won. Dig versus C9. C9 won. And EG versus 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves won. So the current standings overall are C9 in first, followed by 100 Thieves, followed by TSM, followed by Team Liquid, followed by Dig and Toss, Evil Geniuses, Immortals, FlyQuest, Counterlogic Gaming, and Golden Guardians is in last place. Now, overall, this doesn't really matter. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 more weeks to go. It ends in July, ends in August until the summer split ends. However, the top 8 teams make playoffs. So that's currently the only teams that don't make playoffs are CLG and Golden Guardians right now. And I don't see how. I mean, they can catch up, but because winnings carried over, Cloud9 is 17-7. You know, so there's no way CLG ever comes back and just beats C9. There's no way. But they can, you know, maybe if they win a couple more games, 3 more games, and, you know, they can get into playoffs. Maybe. In LEC, which started this week, we had Mad versus G2. G2 won. SK versus AST. AST won. Rogue versus XL. Rogue won. Vitality versus Glock 04. Vitality won. Misfits versus Fnatic. Misfits won. XL versus AST. AST won. SK versus Misfits. Misfits won. Vitality versus Rogue. Rogue won. Glock 04 versus G2. Glock 04 won. Mad versus Fnatic. Mad won. And then we had Glock 04 versus XL. XL won. Vitality versus Misfits. Misfits won. Mad versus AST. Mad won. SK versus G2. G2 won. Rogue versus Fnatic. Fnatic won. Currently, the standings for EU are Misfits in first, followed by Astrals, followed by G2, then Mad Lions, and Rogue. All those 4 teams are tied for second, of course. XL, Glock 04, Fnatic, and Team Vitality are tied for 6th, and then SK is dead last in 10th. LCK also started a couple weeks ago, and we have the first week of LCK, and then we have this week starting Wednesday. I will tell you who is playing who, but those games have not been played yet. But in the first week, we had BRO versus LSB. BRO won. T1 versus HLE. There's Han Life Esports. T1 won. KT versus NS won. Gen G versus DRX. Gen G won. Afrika versus Bro. Afrika won. DK versus T1. DK won. NS versus LSB. NS won. HLE versus Gen 1. KT versus DK. DK lost. Surprising. DRX versus Afrika. DRX or Afrika won. And then for this week, we have NS versus DRX, Gen G versus KT, T1 versus BRO, Dayki versus Afrika, or Damwon versus Afrika, LSB versus Hangwon Life, Gen G versus NS, DRX versus Damwon, Afrika versus KT, LSB versus T1, and Bro versus Hanwon Life. The current standings are: in first tied is Afrika and Gen G. Third is Nongshim Red Force. Fourth is Frit Baron. Fourth is KT Roster and T1. Seventh is Damwon. Eighth is DRX and Live Sandbox. And finally last is Hangwon Life Esports. Poor Chovy. Just come to NA. Please. I mean, make our region better. So, and this is, I believe, the first year since they started franchising too. So it's very interesting in LCK. And LPL. And here we go. Before we are finally over. IG versus Sunning. IG won. You know what? LPL, there's just too many teams. I'm just going to do the standings. We have Edward in first, followed by LNG in second. Fun plus Phoenix and Team WE are tied for third. JD and Rare are fifth and sixth. Seventh is LGD. Eighth is Oh My God. Ninth is Royals Never Give Up. 10th is Invictus and Ultra Prime. 12th is Top Esports and Victory 5. 14th is Billy B and Sunning. 16th is Rogue Warriors. And 17th is Thunder Talk Gaming. For game announcements, what do we got? Well, nothing huge. Final Fantasy VII Remake DLC came out. We have Ninja Gaiden Master Collection came out. We had the Olympics Games Tokyo 2020. The official video game is going to come out on this 22nd. Legends of Mana, which comes out soon. We have Among Us coming out for the Xbox on the 15th. We have Tony Hawk coming out for the Switch. We have Destroy All Humans coming out on the Switch. Nothing really big here. July, again, when we get closer to July, nothing really big at all either. Overall, I said it, this is going to be a very calm and chilled out week or year for gaming. I don't think we're going to get a lot of new games or new stuff or new games at all. So that's going to conclude this week's show of It's Not a Sport. Hope you enjoyed it. Quick reminder, as always, leave a like, follow, comment, subscribe. All those links are in the description below, where you can find our social medias and where we post our previous shows. Videos being on YouTube, and also where all of our shows are archived, and the most listened shows on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Podcast. So make sure to check all that out, where you can find it in the description below. This has been your host, Salty Waffles, signing off, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful